boys and girls, students. My name is TT, and today let's do an ellipse. So, there are very few important details that should be given to you when it comes to an ellipse. As a matter of fact, there are only two details that are given to you, which are dimensions. They give you the major axis and then they give you the minor axis. They give those in a form of dimensions. So in this case, let's make the major axis 100 units. We make the minor axis 50 units. And of course, by units, I'm referring to millimeters. So the first thing that you do when constructing for an ellipse is you draw a cross. And then after drawing that cross, that is where you'll start inserting your what? Your axis dimensions. We have the minor axis measured at 50 millimeters, and then we have the major 800 millimeters. So let's go on and put the minor axis on our vertical line, and then we're gonna mark the measure on our horizontal line. So since the minor axis is 50 millimeters, which means from the center point of the cross, you measure 25 units to the top and you measure another 25 units to the bottom. Both those points, they should be resulting to what? To 50. Now let's mark our measure axis. The measure axis is supposed to be 100 millimeters. So from the center point to the left side, it's 50 units. And then from the center point to the right hand side, it's also 50 units. They both total to 100 millimeters. So you always measure from the center, because the distance from the center point to the left hand point, it should be equal to the distance for the other opposite point. So after you are done marking for your measure axis, and remember everything is done in faint line because we are still dealing with the construction part. Our points for the minor axis is point 1 and point 2. And then our points for the measure axis is point 1 and point number 2 along the horizontal right there. Alright, now the next step that you do, you choose the quadrant that you'll be working from. So if you choose quadrant number 1, so it means everything that you're going to be do for construction, you will be doing it on quadrant number 1. If you choose 2 or 3 or 4, it's up to you. But I'm advising you that the quadrant that you choose when you start doing an ellipse, you should always choose that quadrant no matter what. Every time when you do an ellipse, you should always choose that quadrant so that everything is going to be familiar. So let's work from quadrant number 1. So if I choose quadrant number 1, which means now the next step that I'm going to do, I will have to join this point and that point like that. So after joining those points, you take your compass, you place it at the center, the origin center right there. You open it all the way up to the end of the measure axis for quadrant number 1. And then you scribe a huge arc that is gonna touch your what? Your vertical up there. And then you mark another point right there. What you do next, you take your compass again, you place it at that point right there. That is going to be the station point of your compass now, and then you open it all the way up to the recent created point on your vertical, and then you scribe another arc that is going back to your diagonal line. And then after completing this step, you now focus on the distance from this point to that point right there, which means you're going to be focusing on this distance that is in between those 2 points. So now after focusing on that distance, what you do, you take your compass again, you place it at one point, and then you open it more than half of that distance. But if you cannot specify the more than half distance, it doesn't matter. You can always extend your compass all the way to the end point right there. After doing that, you make an arc, a single arc like that. After completing that first arc, you jump to the second point, that point right there. You place your compass again, you open it all the way to the opposite point, and then you scribe another arc. And when you do the arcs, make sure that they are crossing at some point, because you're gonna need those points. Now our arcs are crossing at this point right there, and then on the bottom part they are crossing at that point right there. After that, you draw a straight line from this point all the way through that point. Once it reaches your vertical, you mark a point there. Alright, now you are done constructing from the quadrant that you chose. The next thing that you do, you transfer the distances. So you're gonna have that point marked out right there. That point is very, very important. And then you have that one as well. So what you do is you take your compass, you open it to that point, and then you lift it, you rotate it all the way to the following point, and then you scribe an arc. After marking out that point, transferring the bottom point to the upside. So you do the same thing that you did. You take your compass, you place it at the center, you open it up to that point over there, and then you rotate it all the way to the opposite side without distracting it. And then you mark another point on the opposite side. Now, after marking that point, you take a ruler, you place it at this point, and on that point also, you draw the very similar line to the upside. Now, keep in mind that this line doesn't have any dimensions. You just draw it as long as you want. It doesn't matter because it's in faint line anyway. It's a construction line. So that point right there is the very similar point with this one. So you place your ruler at that point all the way to the exact point where your V crossed the measure axis. You draw another straight line that is going to pass exactly on that point. And then you go to the reference point again. You place your ruler from that point to that point, you draw another straight line that passes exactly on that point right there. So after completing this step, that will mean you are done constructing for an ellipse. The only thing that is left is to pull up your compass and just complete the curves. Now, this method that we're doing here, it's called the 4 center method. Why is it called the 4 center method? Because you'll be placing your compass on 4 points to come up with all four curves of the ellipse. So let's analyze our centers. We have that center right there, center number 1. We have center number 2. We have center number 3. We have center number 4. Now, the next thing you do after analyzing your centers, you take your compass, you place it on one center. Start with that one. You open it up to the end of your measure axis right there, the end point of your measure axis, where you mark the measure axis at the beginning. And then you make an arc that is going to start at that one diagonal and pass through your measure axis point and then go all the way to the bottom diagonal right there. And then you shift to the other side, you do the very same thing all the way to the opposite. And now we've completed using our two centers of the 4, which is this center and that center right there, which means now we've left with that top center and the bottom center. So the next thing you do, you choose one center. Now after placing your compass at the center, you open it up to your minor axis, the opposite minor, not this minor axis, but the opposite minor axis. Now, if everything was done accurately, it means when you open your compass to there and then you start at this point, you make an arc, it's gonna touch this point, come over and touch the minor axis, and then go and join to the opposite curve, exactly like this. And then for the last part of the ellipse, you place your compass there, you do the very same thing that you just did now. You open it up to the opposite minor, and then you produce a curve that is joining everything. This is how you come up with an ellipse. And just like that, you are done. You've completed an ellipse. Before we carry on to the lesson, it is my greatest pleasure to let you know that I've done some research and came up with something specially made for you, which is engineering drawing course for beginners. So if you are interested, there is a link in the description. You can just click it there, which is gonna take you to this page right here. We start from the very basic of engineering drawing, such as reproduction drawing. It's also broken down into pieces, so we're not rushing anywhere, just being fed the knowledge a bit by bit until you get the hang of it. So it's from the very basic all the way up to the more advanced stuff, and then going to the isometric, it's also broken down to pieces. We start by the isometric positioning. We start by explaining that first, and then we jump to the isometric drawing itself, isometric circles after, and then at the end is iso polygons. So these are all the tools that you will ever need in order for you to understand engineering drawing. So if you are interested, you come back to this page after clicking the link in the description. You scroll down to the very end, and then there are packages right there. There is a membership option, and then there is a once-off option right there. So in a membership option, you can pay on the monthly basis and get access to all the curriculum right there. And then on the once-off payment option, you just pay only once, you get the full access forever. It will be up to you to choose the option that you're gonna be comfortable with. But all in all, I would pretty much appreciate your support. Alright, that's it. Now let's go back to the lesson. So now when creating an ellipse, you choose where to mark your major axis and the minor axis according to the given task. You choose that according to the given task. If the ellipse on the question is positioned like the previous one that we just did, you're gonna do it according to the previous solution. But if your ellipse is positioned in a different manner, like this one right here, so this one has the major axis from the top to the bottom. It has the minor from left to right. So now let me show you what you do when you encounter a situation like this. Now we've already marked out your major axis and the minor axis. So what you do in this case is not different from what we've done before. You still do the first step as you know it, you join the major and the minor in a manner of a straight line. So this is the major, this is the minor, you join it in a manner of a straight line. So since you've joined this major and that minor, it simply means you'll be working from this quadrant right there. So after doing that, you do the following step, which is taking your compass, you place it at that origin center, you open it all the way up to the measure. You create an arc that is gonna touch the line of your minors right there, and then after that you focus on this distance. You take your compass, you place it at that point, you open it up to your recent created point, you do another arc that touches your diagonal, and then now you do the very same thing that we did before. You focus on this point and that point, you focus on that distance in between, and then after that you take your very same compass, you place it on one point, you open it up to the opposite point, you create an arc. Without disturbing your compass, you place it at that point, you open it up to the opposite, you create another arc. And then when you're done with that, you highlight this point, point 1, point 2, right there. And then after marking those points, you take your ruler, you place it at that point, you draw a straight line that is going to pass through that point as well, all the way to your minor axis line. And then when you completed that, which means we are done constructing from the quadrant now, what's left for you to do is to transfer the distances. You transfer this distance to the opposite side and you transfer this distance to the opposite side. Take your compass again, you place it at this origin, you place it on that distance that you want to transfer, you lift your compass, you rotate it all the way to the opposite side. Now there's another way that you can apply if you want to transfer the distances. You can just take your ruler, place it along the vertical, and then you calculate the distance from that point to that point, and then you come and mark it on this side below the center level right there. But now that way is it's complicated and it's time wasting. So that is why the compass makes everything simple. You just place the compass on your center point, you open it up to the point that you want to transfer, and then you rotate it all the way to the opposite side. You mark your point right there. And then after transferring the last point, you take your ruler, you complete what? The V's, which means you join this point and that point with a straight line, and then you do the same thing for this point also. Draw a straight line that passes through that point, and then you complete the what? The inverted V. It passes through that point and it ends anywhere after that point. Now the reason why you extend your lines is because when it's time to draw your arcs, you know that you place your compass at that center and then you open it up to the end of the measure, and then your arc should start from this line all the way up to the opposite line. So these lines you extend them so that they will guide you when it's time to draw the curves. So now let's go ahead and analyze our centers. We have center 1, center 2, center 3, and we have center 4 right there. So you pull your compass, you place it at center 1, you open it up to the end point of the measure, you draw your arc from one V line to the other V line. You go to the opposite side, center, open it up to the end of the measure, you draw it from one V line to the other V line. Now you're left with that center and that center. You place it at that center right there, you open it up to the opposite minor point, and then you draw your arc, closing the left hand side of the ellipse. And then now you are left with the last center point of your compass. You station it there, you open it up to the opposite minor, you join and close the last piece of your ellipse. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are done constructing an ellipse that is positioned in this manner. So, if your ellipse comes in this manner, you know that you use the way that we've just done now. The distance from here to there is the major axis. You join from there to there, and then you work from that quadrant. The very same thing that we've just done. So you construct the ellipse depending on how it is given to you. Because in most of the cases, the ellipse comes in a reproduction process whereby they ask you to reproduce this drawing and then they give you a scale. Just like this question right here. It's a reproduction drawing. They say draw the view of the cover plate to scale 1:2. Show all construction lines of the ellipse using the 4 center method. Insert any 2 dimensions at the end. So what you do is you redraw what you see here. But the main focus is the ellipse. They want to know if you can construct the ellipse. So don't worry, just take our method, which is the 4 center method. You deal with the ellipse.